the way people see us and how effective we are in our work and sometimes even our personal lives. You don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from our speakers and from our organizer today, Dr. Francisca Ver. She is the Associate Dean and Director of the Office of Academic Equity and Electoral College, as well as a Professor of Finance at California University, San Bernardino. She has held a number of leadership positions, including Assistant Dean, Associate Dean, Interim Dean of Graduate Studies. She was the Dean before I was a Dean. She holds a PhD in Finance, a graduate degree in Computer Science, and a master's degree in Commercial Engineering from Catholic University of Lorraine. Am I correct with that? You should write that, Francisca. She's an expert in behavioral finance with over 50 publications in her record and close to 1,000 citations out there. She initiatives such as the Summer Research Program and the Meeting of the Minds Symposium. And by the way, if you haven't participated in it, it's a fantastic experience in really young minds engaging research and creating new knowledge. That program has awarded over 200 to 300 grants to support student and faculty research. So the director of our Office of Academic Equity, Dr. Blair, has established programs such as the Defense Series, the ShEconomy, and event to empower women. She has been the principal investigation on multiple grants, including a $5 million National Science Foundation STEM grant. She has been recognized with quite a number of awards. Just to mention a few. The CSU Faculty Innovation and Leadership Award, the Faculty Mentor Award, Excellence in Teaching Award. She has also served as the president of the Beta Gamma Sigma Honor Society. She's also assistant speaker, having presented in countries such as the US, obviously, but also Thailand, China, France, Cameroon lately, and the list keeps going on and on and on. It's a pleasure to have Dr. Francisca Ver with us today. She's also a great friend. Francisca, please come.
Well, good evening, and thank you very much, Dean Gomez-Arias, for the very nice introduction. So welcome to the 7th ShEconomy. We have a whole program for you, but before starting the program, I would like to just give you a little bit of an idea of why we're doing this and who we are as the Office of Academic Equity. We'll get back to this. So JHBC Office of Academic Equity. JHBC just means Jack H. Brown College of Business and Public Administration. Now, we create this office because we are a strong believer in equity in education. So equity in education means that we strongly believe that people, regardless of their circumstances or their background, need and deserve to succeed. Equity in education is not the same thing as equality. Equality means everybody will receive the same resources. By pursuing equity in education, we are hoping to be able to help those that have some specific needs and then bring the resources they need to succeed. Now, we are really serious about this, and this is the reason why we have this office. This office has done a lot of different things. And among the various things that we have done, well, we create the ShEconomy. So this is the 7th ShEconomy, times fly. The ShEconomy focus is just to bring together students, and I say hi to my student, and thank you for being here, people from the community, colleagues, so that we can all learn from each other. Now, this year, we have 2 sponsors, and I want to recognize our 2 sponsors and thank them. The first one is SoCalGas, and the second one is the Viewpoint Advocacy. Now, those 2 sponsors will allow me to just give you some scholarship, some grants. So at the end of the event, I will just make an announcement, and students that are here, sorry, community, this is for students. The grant scholarship is for students. So students that are here will be able to apply and hopefully receive some money. So what do we do during the ShEconomy normally? Well, our tradition has been to have 2 parts to the event. The first part is a presentation of the ShEconomy. What is the ShEconomy? What it means? How does it work? Why is it important? And the second part changes every year. This year, we are going to talk about self-advocacy, confidence building, and branding. And to help us here, we have some experts, which I will introduce with my colleague Michelle later, that will address some questions and then share their experience with us. I will briefly introduce the topic, and then we will move to this second part of the program. So let's get started with part 1, ShEconomy, some news from the ShEconomy. I thought that the best way to start was just to share with you what is an economy. And you know, I'm a finance professor, so I kind of like that. So what is the economy? Why are we doing this ShEconomy? So maybe the best way to share with you what the ShEconomy is just to start by telling you what it is not. The economy is not just a bunch of ugly people and business people that are just trying to get as much resources as possible and making as much money as possible. If it was the case, I would not have chosen the field. It's not what the economy is all about. The economy is all the organization, is churches, hospitals, schools, firms, factories, all the organizations that come together. And what all those organizations do, well, they produce goods and services, and they consume goods and services. And all that together give us work. And that is extremely important. Now, I just said all the organizations produce goods and services and consume those goods and services. So how do we capture the size of the economy? Well, we focus on this, what has been produced, what has been consumed. And when we look at what has been produced, we capture that the best we can by using the GDP, the gross domestic product. This is what an economy produces, the gross domestic product. And we all the time look at the GDP to have an idea how healthy is our economy. No, I'm oversimplifying here, right? I mean, we could just devote the whole night talking about, more than the whole night, honestly, the economy, size of the economy, inflation, and on, but that's not really the purpose for tonight. But tonight, knowing that a good way to capture the size of the economy is to look at the GDP is sufficient. So GDP, well, what is the GDP? So in the United States, according to the Department of Labor, GDP in 2023 is between 25 and 26 trillion. It's 25.7, but again, this magnitude is enough. Okay? So that's the size of the US economy. And what we always hope is that the economy is going to continue to grow, not growing too fast because that's unmanageable. Now, if you look at the size of the US economy and you wonder, how much do women contribute to the size of the economy? I did some research here, and the World Economic Forum, and you know they meet every year in Geneva in Switzerland, reported that women contribute 9 trillion So 9 trillion out of the 25, 26 with 25%, right? Also, so that's women contribution. Coming from what? Well, women that are producing goods and services, women that are consuming goods and services. Now, if that number is not enough to just give you some idea of why we need to talk about the ShEconomy, I look at a couple of additional statistics. And the Center for American Progress has reported that in 1960, we had about 11% of women that were the sole breadwinner or co-breadwinner. That number reached about 40% in 2020. So as of now, 40% is close to 50, huh? We're close to half. So 40% of women, we are now the sole breadwinner or the major co-breadwinner. That's not it. Women contribute also substantially in the business sector. Looking at businesses information, in 2020, there is 12.3 million of businesses that were women-owned. How much is that? It's about 40% of the businesses. Now, remember, in the United States, we always say that the backbone, right, of the economy is the business. So look at the numbers of women that are owned and operated by women. That number has increased and reached 14 million in 2024. And that's about 39%, because the number of businesses changed. But again, we are very close to 40%. Now, those businesses are generating a tremendous amount of profit. They're generating a tremendous numbers of work. In fact, I look at additional information, and I found a very, very good study from McKinsey. They did a fabulous job. They took a sample of 1,000 companies. They ranked all those companies according to the diversity of their leadership. So the companies that are the most diverse are on top, and the companies that are the least diverse, right, were on the bottom. And then they compare the profit that are generated by those companies. So they compare profit generated by the companies, right, that are the most diverse with the profit generated by the companies that are the least diverse. And in this specific case, they define diversity as number of women in the leadership, because we both know diversity means way more than gender, right? Diversity is spent on so many different things. Religion, politics, right? Ethnicity, and on and on. But in this case, they focus on gender diversity. And they show that the companies that are on top have a profitability that is on average 25% higher than the company in the bottom. For us in business, this is really a measure of success, not the only one. But to remain in business, it's important not to lose money continuously. Yeah? So those companies are doing better. They generate a higher profit. I mentioned a minute ago that we have a substantial amount of businesses that are women-owned. Well, the women-owned businesses in 2023 have generated $2.8 trillion. So those are very, very substantial amount of money, very substantial. Now, I was curious to find out, well, why are the businesses that are the most diverse, right, doing so much better than the businesses that are not as diverse? And according to McKinsey study, there is several reasons. One of the reason is perspective. Second one is talent. And the third one, innovation. When you have a diverse group of people, you have a diverse amount of perspective. And that has been shown to just be better to solve problems. So problem-solving ability is better resolved by a diverse group. You have also more talent. Large group of individuals and diverse group generate more talent and a culture of talent. Now, for business, that's important because that has been shown to be a factor to growth. And that's what the business want to do. Then finally, innovation. Again, companies that are more diverse, gender diverse, innovate more than others. And more innovation means that you're more competitive than others. So those are probably the reason, as reported by McKinsey, where businesses are doing better when they're more diverse. Now, women in the economy and women contribution in the economy does not end in the United States. In fact, I look all over the world and I found information about Africa, Europe, Asia, and I'm just going to quote a little bit. So for instance, in Africa, there is some interesting studies. Everything I'm reporting here is just, of course, the results of some research. We know that women are 3 times more likely to be entrepreneurs than men. In Europe, I look at a lot of studies and I decide to just quote this recent observation by the European Commission. You know, you can look at studies that look at how many women work, right? How many women contribute and on, which is something that I'd been mentioning. But in Europe, they're also talking about women impact on the arts, on culture. And at this stage, women are set to redefine the way arts is perceived in Europe. Now we have the same observation for Asia. Here I just took the example of China. Of course, Asia, it's very, very wide, right? Just giving you some example. So in Asia, Liu reported that spending by women has increased by 81% over the last 5 years. Now remember, the economy is producing, consuming, right? So at this stage in China, women impact in the economy is tremendous. Now, women are doing more and more. Women are contributing to the economy. That does not mean that we don't have a gender gap. So what do we call a gender gap? Well, gender gap means that women in some sectors make less than men, that there is a gap in political representation, in healthcare, in labor market. So there is still a gap. So the first thing I want you to realize is that if we could eliminate the gap, which I will define a little bit more in a minute, if we could eliminate the gap, the GDP of the world will increase by 12 trillion. GDP of United States, remember it's about 25, 26, will increase by $4 or $5 trillion by 2030, 2032. Of course, those are projections. So if it is true that we will be all better off, since the economy will function better and we will all reap the benefits of having a good and healthy economy, more job, more retention of the jobs, less difficulties, more satisfaction. If it is true, then how come we still have a gender gap? And what is the gender gap and what can we do to try to eliminate it? So gender gap exists, is still here. We have a gap in political representation, health and labor participation, income, and education. So I can start with education because in the United States, in fact, we're doing really good in that respect, right? In the United States. But again, I mean, when I show you the 12 trillion, that's all over the world, right? So in the United States, we're doing quite well. Oh, what happened here? Oh, I'm missing. Oh, here we go. I skipped one slide. I'm sorry. So in the United States, I just choose this statistic here. This shows you the percentage of adults ages 25 and older that have a bachelor's degree. Well, look at the graph. In 1970, you had 8% of women. It's in green. But then as we go over time, by 2021, we have 39% of women that have a bachelor's degree, compared to 37% of men. So education is not perfect, but in the United States, the gap between men and women is not as severe as what it is in many other countries. Now, what else do we have? Well, we have political representation. Remember the slide, there is different variable, right? We have political representation. Well, that I think characterizes us in the United States as well. I look at various studies and found that if you look at Congress, that was the House and the Senate together, 28% of the seats are held by women. We have about the same percentage if you look at local government, state government, if you compare the number of women that are governor versus men, it's always a little bit less than 30%. And again, it depends on states, right? But on average. Now, I let you think about that because in the United States, we have about 330 million people, right? And we have about 61% of women, 49% of men. So 61% of women versus less than 28% of representation. So we still think that there is still a gap, a gender gap, that is serious, that needs to be addressed in the political representation. Now, another variable here is health and labor market. Well, health, again, I look at studies. Women live longer than men. I mean, the average lifespan of women is 80 years old, and men is about 74.7. So that's true. However, I was digging a little bit and thinking, so then why do we claim that we have a gap here, right? I mean, it's certainly not in terms of how long we live, but we have a gap when we start looking at other variables. For instance, chronic health disease. Women suffer more than men of chronic health disease. There's more women that also suffer from autoimmune disease. If you look at mental health, you have more women that are reporting anxiety, stress than men. So health is something that we need to keep in mind. Labor market, even if there's a lot of women working and sometimes more women in some sectors than others, we're having a problem when we analyze labor market, because you will find more women than men in sectors that do not generate healthy income. For instance, food services, education. In addition to that, you will find a lot of women that are giving up on their career. And of course, that take a toll on their income they're making. And then finally, women normally are more caregiver than what men are. So generally speaking, we still have some difficulties in the labor market. Now, all those variables together, I think, are nicely summarized when we look at this graph. And it was also listed. So this graph here look at the gender pay gap. This graph indicates that the gender pay gap has narrowed, right? Between 90, 80, and then 2000 and on and on. And in fact, it's even a little bit more narrow now. So if you look at the gender gap, in 1982, women were making 65 cents when men were making $1. Now, in 2022, the gap has changed. Now women are making 82 cents per dollar. And again, the gap has been narrowing, in fact. If you look at 23, 24, the gap has been narrowing. And a lot of studies are trying to find out, well, why do we have still a gap? And reasons will be health, political representation, and on, okay? Segregation in the labor market. You're gonna have women that are more in some sectors than others. And I need to mention that because I thought that was so it's sad, in fact. In addition to those reasons, one reason that we have to keep in mind is discrimination. Some studies, and not only one study, several studies are still showing that there is discriminations against women in some sectors. So, well, what do we have to do? Well, we have to continue to make progress. And I see, okay, that's fine, I can function. And I was thinking, well, how can we continue and make progress? Well, one way to operate is to just have events like this that make us think about what is it that we have to do, that also make us realize, look at those numbers, because sometimes we don't really know. We just feel we don't know, but it's important to kind of be knowledgeable here. Now, in my college, we are very, very strong believer that having event like this, in fact, promote more equity between men and women. And in fact, studies show that when people self-advocate, they're doing better than when they do not. I put one slide. If you look at this slide, I found this study that showed that when people self-advocate in the workplace, they're more likely to be promoted. You can see the two yellow little graph, right? When people self-advocate, they're more likely to just have some job satisfaction. They're more likely to retain their job. So then the question is really, why don't we self-advocate more? Are women self-advocating about themselves as much as men are? I look at that and I have to say, no, men self-advocate more than women do. And this is something we have to think about, because clearly, if you look at this graph, there is a lot of benefits in self-advocacy. So then I was curious to know, well, why is it that we do not self-advocate? And I found, I started, and I need to apologize in advance to my colleague in psychology, because I'm an economist here. So, but still I try to dig. And in psychology, there is fantastic theory that explain what self-advocacy is, meaning you recognize your self-worth, you understand your need, and you're able to take action knowing that. Some of those theories are the social cognitive theory, self-determination theory, assertiveness theory, empowerment. Psychology is a fascinating field, I'm telling you, and on and on. And all those theories, in fact, give us the framework to start understanding self-advocacy and start making progress. I wanted to share with you results of a study here that I use those theory really, really well. And the results of this study is to ask people, well, are you self-advocating for yourself? Yes or no? Are you satisfied with how much you self-advocate? Do you think you need to do more? And if you're not self-advocating for yourself, why? If you look at the pink rectangle at the bottom of this slide, most respondents, close to 60%, indicate that they do not self-advocate. They realize the benefits, but they do not, because they're shy, because they're anxious. If you look on top of the diagram, some individuals, mainly women, mention they're afraid to be perceived as aggressive when they self-advocate too much for themselves. Now, the blue, because individuals are worried they're going to be perceived as aggressive, because they're shy, they're anxious, they don't self-advocate. And in addition to that, more than 40% of respondents feel that they're fearful. They should be fearful that their organization is going to punish them. So this event is basically designed to have us thinking a little bit more about the ShEconomy and self-advocacy. I wanted you to know that, of course, self-advocacy is directly related to confidence. Studies show that 70% of people that feel confident self-advocate. And if you're confident, you self-advocate, and you build your brand. And studies show that those are extremely important in the workplace. Hopefully, a better understanding of those variables will help us continuing to narrow the gap. So what do I want to conclude here before I just move to the next part? I hope that I share with you why and how women play a major role in the economy and in driving the economy. I also hope that we have a better understanding about the gender gap and the benefits of eliminating the gap for all of us. So now at this stage, it's time for us to turn toward the second part and say, how are we going to use self-advocacy, confidence, and personal branding in order to try to just disturb a little bit this gap, right? And all benefits. So thank you so much for listening to me for this first part of the event. So we continue. At this stage, I would like to briefly introduce my friend and colleague, really, Michelle Skiljon, who is going to collaborate with me. We're going to work together as we have done 7 times. This is the 7th ShEconomy, right? Into bringing the expert on the stage and work with the expert so that we all learn what they have done. And then we can share that experience. So Michelle, if you please would like to join me, I will share some information about Michelle. So Michelle Skiljon is the Senior Director of Corporate and Foundation Relations at CSUSB. And she has been occupying this position since 2022. In this position, I want you to know that she has raised close to $8 million. Now, Michelle has previously launched the Inland Empire and Coachella Valley Women Business Center, and I'm quite sure a lot of you know Michelle in that capacity. I see a lot of yes here. She was in charge of that center for many, many years, right? And under her leadership, the center has trained 85,000 participants and counsel about 5,700 businesses. Michelle also serves as an adjunct professor of entrepreneurship at CSUSB between 2007 and 2021. She has received awards such as the 2014 Corporate Entrepreneur by the National Association of Women Business Owners and AWBO, now BO, Inland Empire, and the Small Business Administration, SBA, Women Business Center Director of the Year. Michelle has a bachelor's degree in information management and an MBA in entrepreneurship from CSUSB. So thank you for being here. Thank you. So,
and I hope everybody's excited about this topic as I am. I need to hear this today, so I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to start out by introducing Christine Glass. Christine has 25 years of experience in human resources and management, including 4 years at Omnitrans. She oversees recruitment, workforce development, performance and risk management, and employee and labor relations for the agency. She has spearheaded initiatives including Omnitrans apprenticeship and mentorship programs. She is a member of the Launch Apprenticeship Network Automotive Regional Committee. She's a California native and a graduate of Cal State University San Bernardino, earning a bachelor's degree in administration. And she also earned her master's degree in industrial organizational psychology from Walden University. And I'm going to ask to expand upon this introduction. Could you briefly share a pivotal moment or experience in your journey when you realized the importance of self-advocacy, confidence building, or personal branding in the digital era?
Thank you, Michelle. I think it started before digital got really popular. So for me, psychology is really important. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I'm very much about being authentic and being in the right mindset. So confidence and all of those things comes first. So you need to first know who you are, what you're about, and what you're selling, whether it's services, an idea, or actually a product. So that's where it started for me. And I got into my own personal coaching business, and I helped other women in businesses be able to brand themselves in an authentic way so that they had their audience listening to them about what they were about. So for me, that's the biggest piece about the digital age. Yes, we want to get the numbers. Yes, we have so many followers. Yes, we have so many connections on LinkedIn, all of those things. If you're not authentic, you're going to get the wrong people in the room, whether that's digital or otherwise, and you're not going to be able to sell your product in the way you want to, and you're going to have more problems on the back end. So I'm all about being proactive. Do it first so you don't have to clean up the mess later. HR kind of helps with that idea. So the whole idea in a digital way, I don't have a huge digital presence. So if you look, but you'll see videos, 1-minute videos. 1-minute things to think about. If I do anything, I'm going to ask you a question and make you think. If you can think, where are you going to go? Because when we're in our own heads, we're asking ourselves a question and we're answering it. It's just really repetitive and really quick. So ask a better quality question and get a better quality answer. Ask a better quality question or put a better quality digital media out there, and you're going to get a better following. You'll get your following, not just people. You don't want people just to follow you. You need your people to follow you. That's what's going to get you where you need to go.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to introduce our second guest expert, Magdalena Cepeda-Silek. She is a mother of 2 boys, aged 5 and 7, a firefighter's wife, and the daughter of Mexican immigrants. Her career spans from education, community leadership, property management, and communication, culminating in her role as the founder of a technology company that focuses on communication, connection, and community. Her entry into the tech startup world is a significant shift from her long-standing career in education. Magdalena's personal experiences and her parents' teaching while growing up have produced the foundation for this transition. The values instilled in her: you can do anything you put your mind to. You are capable, and always help others when you're able to, have guided her purpose and are now driving her success in funding God's Info. Academically, Magdalena is very well prepared for this venture. She has a Master's of Arts degree in Communication Study, another in Education Administration. She has a double Bachelor's of Arts degree in Film, Television, Theater, and in Spanish. Now, Magdalena's extensive backgrounds in communication, connecting individuals, and community work uniquely qualifies her to identify and solve the unmet needs that GotInfo and the GotInfo app aim to address. Her knowledge of the needs of the brick-and-mortar establishments is informed by her experience as an elected official and community leader, and our ability to work with very diverse demographics. So Magdalena, who has been, by the way, I want to add one last line, bio is long, but one last thing. I know her personally, she's just a fantastic. She's really, it's very, very fantastic. And she's doing so well that in 2024, Magdalena was featured in the Inland Empire magazine, Women Who Lead. She was the 23-24 Riverside Unified School District High School Teacher of the Year. Whole achievement that show how versatile she is. So Magdalena, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Beard. Thank you, Michelle. So as far as the question, what is it that was that pivotal moment for me where I said, self-advocacy is going to either make or break me? So GotInfo is a tech company. It's a platform that's going to communicate, it's going to connect consumers and small businesses in a very hyper-local area, very instant gratification need. So I had this idea because I was looking for something for my children and I couldn't find it. And I was out in the Coachella Valley. And if any of you have been out to the Coachella Valley, it's very hot. And so I had the babies in and out of the car, hot place, going here, going there. I was looking for something simple. Black toddler clothes. Should be simple to find. Well, where do you go? Walmart. So I went there. I couldn't find it. Okay, how about Kohl's? Couldn't find it. I call. Press 1, press 2, press 3. Okay, be on hold. And so after going to so many stores, I said, why in this day of age is there not a platform where we can be each other's eyes and ears, that we can connect? We can do it while we're driving. Oh, there's construction on the road coming up, speed check. But we can't do it when we're standing in a store. And that's where the idea came up. And that idea kind of went here, hung out of my head. I saw Michelle. I said, Michelle, I think I have something. She gave me some resources. I looked into those, but I didn't do anything with it for about 4 months. And I just didn't know what to do. I said, how do you make it? So then my husband, who's watching from home with the boys right now, he said, babe, he said, why don't you make it? Why don't you construct it? What do I know? I'm a teacher. So one night, I stayed up all night. It was a school night, and I put the boys to bed, sat down, watched some videos, did some reading. And then that morning, I said, I need a developer. And that's when the the ball started to roll. And at that point, I said, I have to advocate for myself. I have to ask questions. I have to call people, the university, go back to Michelle, the Small Business Development Center, and don't be shy and just represent. Because if no one was going to share my vision, no one was going to speak for my vision, for that mission that I have to help people, helping people, businesses, hearing from us what we need. No one was going to do it if it wasn't for me. And so that personal branding was help others, help each other. And that's what I promote. And this is a platform that is a super example of how personal branding and just advocating for yourself can make a vision come true.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce Cherie Gillens, who's the Director of Marketing and Communications at the Inland Empire Community Foundation. She's been there for nearly 10 years and has led the design and implementation of the foundation's marketing and communication programs to inspire philanthropy and drive storytelling of the region's oldest and largest foundation. You learn a new thing every day, and that's one of our new things today. Oldest and largest foundation. Its grant-making priorities and leadership programs. And they've really done some neat work. I'm just super impressed. So she's also a member of PRSAIE. She's the chapter board. She's on the chapter board and holds a BS in communications from Cal State Poly Pomona. Now, I'm glad this is on here because acronyms, we use them often. So I wanted to share that it's PRSAIE is the Public Relations Society of America, the Inland Empire Chapter Board. So continuing with the theme, if you could share a pivotal moment where you, in your journey, where you realized the importance of self-advocacy.
Well, first I want to say thank you for having me. I have wanted to attend this event for, I guess, the past 7 years, and lucky number 7, right? And so I thought I'd be in the audience, and here I am on the panel. So just so delighted to be here. For me, early on, it was really important for me to attach myself to role models, mentors, people that I admired and wanted to learn from, people that could pour into me, people that looked like me, doing the work that I do. And so really quick, right out of college, you know, one of my first early role models was my first boss. She hired me literally right out of college. I was her only employee. She exposed me to every aspect of the business, and she owned a boutique PR firm. And I, learned, I soaked in everything that I could. And she put me on large accounts, and she just put me out there, and I'm going like, whoa, I'm just this 22-year-old, you want me to do all this? And she, believed in me. So she planted that seed really, really early for me. And that really contributed to my confidence building. Now, I will say it's a slow build. So it does not happen overnight. This took a long time to get here, to be on this stage, to be truthfully and honestly with you, right? So I think it's important to be authentic with yourself and go like, maybe I may not be ready for this. Maybe I wasn't ready for this 10 years ago or 15 years ago, but I will say that you can arrive, you will arrive. And to always bet on yourself and to know your personal brand. So my personal brand really is, so nonprofits are my jam. I love to promote nonprofits and their amazing work and help them with their storytelling. And and I share that. It spills over into the digital space, right? So I use my my platforms to share my insights and how I help nonprofits and so forth. So I don't know if I'm getting the 1 minute thing, but that's how I've learned to be self-confident and self-advocacy and always thinking of how to cultivate my brand.
Thank you. And I have the pleasure to introduce Marjorie McPike. Marjorie is a CPA focusing on tax advisory and small business accounting. The company is located in Riverside County in California. Marjorie was born and raised in San Diego. She attended San Diego State University, where she received her Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration with a concentration in accounting. She obtained her Master's of Science in Taxation from Golden Gate University. Marjorie is a licensed certified public accountant, a member of California Society of Certified Public Accountants, the CalCPA, and the American Institute of Certified Public Accountant, AICPA. Marjorie currently serves as the president of the Inland Empire chapter of CalCPA and council representatives to the board of directors of CalCPA. She's also a founding member and the corresponding secretary for the Alliance of Black Women Accountants. In 2020, Marjorie started her own firm, Marjorie L. McPike, CPA APC, a podcast, the CPA Lady podcast, and YouTube channel, all with the mission of empowering small business owners to take their business to the next level financially. Her mission is to ensure that individuals understand their taxes. When Marjorie is not working, she enjoys spending time with her family any outdoors activity near the water, and playing a newfound hobby of tennis. So Marjorie, if you could also just give us your the information about a pivotal moment.
Well, first of all, I'll say thank you as well to Dr. Francesca for inviting me, and Michelle, I've seen you around. It's amazing how you come into places and you see so many familiar faces. I would say a pivotal moment for me was when I decided to pursue my CPA license. So I graduated from high school, but I didn't take the traditional route. I got married, had kids, and then I went back to school and I was raising my kids while finishing up school. And so I was just trying to get finished. And then I decided that I wanted to become a CPA. And in order to become a CPA, you have to work under a CPA. So I had moved from San Diego to Lake Elsinore, in between major cities, so any place that you had to go, you had to commute. And so I had to advocate for myself in order to find a CPA firm to work for. And the way I did this was I was commuting from Lake Elsinore to Hemet at the time, and I would just take different routes just to kind of change up the, not be so monotonous, mundane, going the same way all the time. And I had driven by this one CPA firm, and I wrote down the name of it, and I had it in my lunch bag. And I kept on driving, just kind of going about my business. And so one day I'm driving to work and I see this car driving by, and on the license plate, it says LLCPA. And so I followed the car. And when the gentleman stopped, I stopped and I told him, I said, I'm working on getting my CPA license. Do you know any CPA firms? Can you help me out? And he told me to give him my resume. And so I did that. Couple weeks later, I got a phone call from a CPA firm, the one that I had that I was carrying the card in my car. My car is called Boston & Associates CPA. And I got a phone call from that CPA firm saying that they were looking for someone, and they hired me to come and work part-time.
Wow.
So I was working part-time there and still working at my full-time job in order to kind of bridge. In order to kind of bridge. But I've always had to do things like that where it's advocating for myself. So it's whether following them, or even kind of getting to the point where I am with ABWA. I actually, when I was introduced to Rosemary Brown for an interview, I asked her if I could keep her card in order to keep in touch with her, because she could be a mentor for me in my profession. So always about self-advocacy.
Thank you. Now we are going to continue the program. We have additional questions for our panel. And we are having two students on both sides, Ashwin on one side and Aparna on the other side. They just stand up. That will take questions from the audience. So they're going to be working with the microphone. And in addition to that, we're having Celestine and Melissa. I don't know if I can see her someplace right there. So just Celestine. That will take the online question, and will bring those questions to Michelle or to myself. Okay. So I'm going to first ask a question to Magdalena, and then we'll see if we have questions for the audience, and Michelle has question as well. So Magdalena, how have you personally experienced and defined self-advocacy, specifically in the digital era? What actions have you taken to advocate for yourself and for others as a woman?
Thank you. And I did bring my notes. I wanted to make sure that I covered, when I first wrote out my answers and then thought about these questions, I said, oh, do I get an hour to answer? Oops. We got 3 minutes, two warning, 2-minute warning. So I wanted to make sure I got to the point and made sure that I expressed exactly what I needed to say in a condensed manner. So I've defined self-advocacy as expressing what I need in a polite, assertive way. And not necessarily confident, but just assertive. And what has helped me is writing it. I'm a second language learner. I grew up speaking Spanish at home, and we spoke Spanish at home, English on the streets at school with our friends. So I think I've always I carried that like, oh, I have to think it out before I say it. So I write down things. So when I was making these phone calls to get myself some mentors, some access to some guidance for the development of the Got Info app, I wrote out, okay, what do I need? What do I need to ask? What do I need to make sure that I say? And so that's what I was using. So I would say that you state what you need, and if you need politely, assertively, but then you prepare. Try to prepare. If that is fear, anxiety comes up, or nervousness, or you think something, you're going to say something wrong, I would say do that. Experience, as far as sharing my mission of self-advocacy, I believe that my parents taught me this, that you always help others. You connect with people, you communicate with people, you are kind, you are helpful. And so that is how I personally brand myself. And that's what I've been sharing. And I believe, again, going back to the Got Info app, that it aligns with my values. And that's why I'm very passionate about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Christine, you mentioned the 1-minute videos. And this question revolves around that. So what specific actions have you taken to use digital platforms as a tool for amplifying your voice, sharing your story, and advocating for yourself and other women?
Thank you, Michelle. So 1 minute is a lot easier to keep somebody's attention, right? And get a message out. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Obviously, I try to be pretty concise because people get bored or they get distracted or the phone goes off or whatever happens, correct? So one piece of that is taking the time you have and making the most of it. So doing that online answering things or supporting people. So women who are celebrating something or are having a challenge, what can you do to support them? What can you do to celebrate the problem? That sounds weird, but quality problem. How do you grow? You don't grow in your comfort zone. So what can you do to support somebody to make that stretch, to step up and to take the next step? Because we're all going to have challenges. We're all going to have opportunities for growth, as I like to say, and some of them hurt more than others. So how can you support somebody else in a digital way? If there's bullying going on online, what are you doing to stand up to that? What are you doing to support not only yourself, but other people? In the digital age also, there's so many resources online. So are you sharing those resources? Are you using those resources? Google can be a pain in the butt, but Google can also be a resource to point you in the right direction if you use discernment and authenticity to do the research. It shouldn't be your only resource. It should be a resource. So taking your resources, again, human resources, right? So human resources, humans that are resources, resources for humans. So what are you doing to be that advocacy for yourself and for other people, especially women? Because we were talking about, I love your presentation. Thank you. I learned a lot, took a lot of notes. So it's that idea of what do you do with what you have? Too many times we have imposter syndrome or I'm not good enough or whatever, or somebody else is already putting that message out there. You're going to say it differently. Again, that's that authenticity. Who are you? What are you representing? What are you about? And where are you giving it? Because I've heard all of these women up here say, we're all about service, right? We're all about giving back to other people. We're all about doing things, whether it's a product, a resource, or otherwise. So what are you doing to give that to the next person in a way they can hear it? Thank you.
Well, this is perfect. I mean, Christine, you just mentioned the imposter syndrome. So my question, which is for Marjorie, in your own experience, how have you confronted and conquered feeling of imposter syndrome or self-doubt?
I say just doing it and doing it afraid, being uncomfortable and not getting too complacent. You know, you have to always do. I've done a lot of things where I just said yes, like being here. I just got the invitation and I said yes. You know, you don't think about it, you just do it because you never know how it's going to change or impact your life. And then you also have to think about that, you know, rehearsing your past accomplishments. You know, I heard somebody say that before. It's like you have to kind of go down the list and just rehearse your past accomplishments and and brag about yourself to yourself, because a lot of times we become humbled and you're just like, oh, that's not me. Or I didn't do that, so for me, it's just been doing it. I do a lot of things afraid. And then you learn how to do it. And again, you never know who you're going to meet or how you're going to meet just by saying yes.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Cherie, how have you personally cultivated and nurtured supportive networks and communities online to bolster your confidence, advocate for your rights, and elevate your personal brand?
So my job is to manage social media channels, and there's lots of them for the Inland Empire Community Foundation, and I have my own. So just staying really active on social media and looking at associations. There's a lot of online communities that you can interact with, you can join. You have to, request, and then they'll let you join. And I try to follow a lot of what I read, a lot of good nuggets. I'll screenshot. I was like, oh, that's really good. That's really good. And I'll go back to it. In fact, I was looking in my photo gallery at a couple of things that I wanted to bring to the conversation today. But just really staying active in social media and what's being presented there, and taking what you can that can be helpful to you. And in terms of just, cultivating your personal brand, don't be afraid to showcase your wins. Who else is going to do it for you? We have these amazing platforms that we can use for good. And obviously, we know they can be used for bad too, but use your LinkedIn, your Facebook pages. That's where I primarily live for myself personally. But if you are written up in the paper or you get some really good publicity, share it, and give a little context and background as to what the story's about and how you were a part of it. So it's okay to brag on yourself, but do it humbly. And because what it is you're inspiring someone else, and you're being an example for someone else. So I think it's really important to do that. Mhm.
Well, remaining here a little bit in the same type of question, and I have another question for Magdalena. Magdalena, reflecting on your journey, what strategies or practices have you personally found effective in overcoming challenges and building confidence as a woman?
So the strategies that I have found that have been most effective for me in overcoming the challenges or the hurdles is a support group. And you have to have your rock. As for some of you, it might be your friend, your best friend, your parents. For me, it's my husband and a mentor. You all have mentioned mentors or trainers or bosses, but you have to have a rock, because it's not easy to get where you want to be, and you fall. And one of the things that I've had to do is go to school to learn the business side of leading a company. And accounting class, Dr. Beer, is not my friend. Oh, I was in the laundry room on my knees crying. How do you, folding clothes, how am I going to do this? I didn't get an A, but I got a B, Dr. Beer. Okay. So you just keep at it. You keep at it and you keep going. So have your rock. That is a huge strategy for me. Also a prayer for me. I pray whenever I'm in trouble. God, where are you? And then let it out. I think sometimes we're so afraid of showing our anger, our frustration, because it's not right. But it's not the frustration, it's not the anger, it's not the uncomfortableness. It's about how you handle it. So once you let it out, some people write it. They send the letter off to somebody in New York. Some people will exercise it out, let it out in a positive way. And that, I think, will allow you to stay balanced. And those are the strategies that I do and that I would recommend. If you don't have any, try them out. Thank you.
Christine, Can you share a personal example of a successful personal branding campaign you've led as a woman that has made a meaningful impact in your industry or community?
I've been in a lot of industries. So the current industry is a little different because I've been called back to public service, which I'm happy to do. Previously, when I had my own coaching business, so Transition Matters, if you see that, it's my handle. I've supported companies in different countries, including Canada, and the one I'm going to use is that example. And two women were starting their own business and they wanted to serve women and they wanted to have basically a health platform. So have multiple different businesses come together in a way that was supportive of women in a holistic way. And holistic in the whole person as well as holistic in a healthier way, not Western medicine. So being able to support them, again, starting with mindset, because they had imposter syndrome. They had, well, I'm not good enough. What can I do? So a lot of coaching around that to get them squared away so that they could put themselves forward. And they started with even healthy spices because that was an easy, step for them. So take that step first. And then, okay, we got some momentum there. That wasn't so scary. It wasn't so bad. What can we do next? And so the piece of that, of doing that, they were able to get a successful business and then get another business on board to create this platform. And it's in Canada. It's online as well, but it's in Canada. And that's where they based their business out of. And it was a diverse group of women, some European, some First Nation, and for us, that's Native Indigenous. So that's was a great way for that diversity piece that Dr. Beer talked about, that you're able to have that diversity to be successful. So one of the strategies I continue to use in anything is tenacity, right? Sometimes we talk about that and that sounds like an attitude and it's a problem, but it's tenacity and finding another way. It's tenacity and finding the purpose. It's tactful tenacity when you have to talk to people, but it's that tenacity of how do you step up, how do you support, and how do you step past that piece of whatever's the block so that I can be successful. There's always another way up the mountain is how I look at it.
Marjorie, what steps have you taken to leverage your unique strength in order to craft your personal brand?
I would say building my social media profile. So in 2020, during COVID, I was at home watching everyone on the internet. But what I was seeing was people were making a lot of money and they didn't know how to handle the money or what was going to happen. People were starting businesses. They were, one of the biggest things that I saw was I made $100,000 in the stock market today. And I would cringe because I knew that they didn't know what that was going to look like on their tax return. And so I started just educating people, just being myself, going online. I would go live. I would talk to people. I built my brand. I set up my website. I started doing my podcast. Just educating people because I felt as though they needed to understand their taxes, understand what was going to happen, and just to be a source for them. And one of the things that happened with that is that my following grew, but I found that there were people that were looking for me. I would get phone calls where people would say they were looking for a female Black CPA. And they were just looking for someone to help them with their taxes, or they would, I was getting all of these likes on things that I would post on Instagram, but I was trying to get the approval of a smaller number of people. And so that just gave me the confidence to kind of step out on my own and to build my business. And that's been one of the biggest things that's happened. And now, I'm not as active on social media, but I still continually get referrals. So, social media and just kind of being out there, just putting yourself out there again, like I said, don't be afraid, just do it. And that's what it was. It was just do it and do it afraid. And it's just been amazing.
Thank you.
And you touched on this a little bit, so I'm excited to hear you answer this question. Considering your own experiences, how have cultural or societal expectations influenced your approach to self-advocacy, confidence building, and personal branding in the digital era? And how have you navigated these influences?
Let's forget my mic. Um, great question. You know, in this day and era, obviously all eyes are on you. And you know, folks are not afraid to use their platform to share their voice and their opinions. And I just feel like, you know, I'm getting, I guess at this stage of my life, I don't see any reason in holding back and, you know, on things that I want to share and things that are important to me. And so I say, you know, let your personality shine through when you're on social media. Be your authentic self. You are one of one. And share the things that are important to you. That's really part of your brand. It's what sets you apart. You're not afraid to offer you know, opinions with what's going on in the world. Now, of course, we all have jobs and we have to be, you know, mindful of social media policies that are in place. But yeah, show up authentically online, whether you have your own website. Again, I keep referencing LinkedIn and Facebook where I spend most of my time. But I'm not afraid to, you know, lift up diverse voices and the plight and needs of other communities and marginalized communities. And I think as women, you know, we're nurturers, we empathize, we're helpers. So a lot of times on my channels, you'll see me sharing resources. Hey, did you know this is coming up? 2 weeks ago, there was the power of the Black vote. So obviously with the upcoming elections, it's about voter education. So I wanted to make sure folks, you know, we're aware that this is happening. And they had a huge discussion on the 10 propositions on the ballot and just the importance of staying civically active and getting out there and voting. So it's important to use your voice and your platform to help others.
Yeah.
This is my last question before we're taking a question from the audience and online. So my last question is for you, Magdalena. And I would like to ask you to share a specific instance from your own career where you have practiced self-advocacy and what that has led to.
I have practiced self-advocacy, probably began in high school. Just speaking for myself, my parents didn't have a formal education, so I had to navigate get into college maze and then graduate from college maze on my own, asking for help, and getting that done within 4 years was my goal. And I had to figure that out. So asking questions, talking to the tutoring center, seeing the counselor, making sure that I was on track to graduate. I did study abroad in Mexico City for a year, making sure those classes would match up with the classes at the University of Notre Dame and get the credit there. So that's where it began. But it wasn't until I got into the workplace that I learned that if we don't speak up for ourselves, I was very comfortable speaking up for other people. It was very interesting because my parents would use me as a translator at 7. I speak English. I'm 7 years old, right? The doctors, the lawyers, I could translate. But I was doing that a lot. But then when it came to my needs, I wasn't. And then when I got into the workforce, that's when I said, okay, this deal is not working out. I'm teaching all these classes that don't relate. I need either change my schedule. I was a high school teacher. That's where I landed, right out of credential school. And I had to advocate for myself. And if I did not get what felt good for me, what was with my story, my values, and my journey, well, I applied for another job. And as difficult as it was, because I was committed, hey, this is where I want to work. This is the school that I went to. I was a graduate of this high school. I want to get back to the community. It was okay. I had to advocate for myself. And so again, moving on, just constantly asking questions, looking for those avenues, seeking the knowledge, networking, learning to story tell, learning, just constantly learning. are the ways that I have advocated for myself. And then I take those nuggets and then I use them and they all show up. Everything that you learn along the way. And these ladies have mentioned that you don't just get here. It's all the bruises and the bumps that allow you to be up here and be speaking in this way.
Thank you. So Aparna and Ashwin, you have a microphone. So, you can cover this area and then Aparna this area. Just if somebody has a question, please.
Very, very interesting, especially for a person who's lived most of her life has passed in the past. So I just wanted to say that Magdalena said something that we could use as a motto. And I'm saying this not just for you, but for the students up there and for the rest of us, that she said, write it down. Writing it down brings the mind and body connection that you need, the muscle memory of the hand and the cognitive, in the cognitive space here in the frontal lobe, you bring it together. Just sitting passively doesn't work. So I often tell my students, Magdalena, write it down.
Well,
Thank you.
if I can add to that, scientifically, they've proven writing it down versus typing, because we all like to type, writing it down does something different in your brain. So it actually makes a better memory for yourself to write it down, not just type it or put it in your phone. So just something to think about.
Thank you. Ashwin, do we have any question on your side? Or yes, I have there somebody I know and recognize. Or maybe Aparna, that's fine.
Hi, my name is Amber Starzik. This has been so interesting. Hi, everybody. Everyone's looking this way now. One of the things that I heard that really resonated with me was about authenticity and how important that is. That's definitely something I've been navigating for myself at work. I work for a nonprofit. How do you identify this might sound like a silly question, but how do you identify your values?
I'll start on that one because I just had to do it. I just had to, and I struggled this way. So what did I do first? Go on Google. How do I discover my values? Like, well, how do I know? Because I guess the research shows that if you know your values, you know where to go. And if you're making a wrong turn, you will feel it in your gut because it's not with those values. And I said, well, I want to know my values. How do I get to my values? So I did some research and I came up with a lot of tests that you can do online. And I started taking all these little quizzes. I would get the results. And then those ones that kept appearing over and over, those ended up being my values. One of the assessments I took was the DISC assessment. It's free. And that showed it. Then there's one, just what are your values quiz? But it always showed the same. And then once you have them and you have, they just resonate, they rise to the top. It's like themes that just keep popping up. Like for me, one of them was my faith. The other one was family. It just kept coming up. Oh, okay. It's popping up. Okay. I'm starting to see it. So then I said, okay, I'm going to write these down, write it. Like the professor said, write it down. And then I'm aligning myself with these. So if it doesn't go, if it doesn't match, then I know it's not right.
Yes.
So if I might on that one, so there are things like this profile, 16 personalities is another online one, which is slightly different. It's more like the Myers-Briggs one. And they'll send you, if you sign up, they'll keep sending you stuff about your particular personality. We use that in our office. It was helpful. Careful not to use it as a negative, like, oh, you're that way because you're that, right? Because that happens. So one of the things that from a coaching point of view, when we ask people what they want, most people will say, well, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want that. Great. It's a great signpost to what you do want. So generally start looking in the opposite direction. The other thing is, which is hard nowadays to sit still, when you get tension in your body, that is against a value, right? So talked about advocating for other people is really easy, right? Like we'll fight for the underdog, no problem. We will go out there, the nonprofits, we love that. We go out there and we fight for those people that don't have a voice, and then learning to have that voice for yourself. So when you start to feel tension or stress, or you're getting upset, frustrated, it's a great point to stop and say, what is really bothering me? So justice is a big thing, right? Like that's when we advocate, we're like, there's injustice happening. Well, what exactly is that injustice? And the other piece I would add is when you start seeing the signpost to what it is that you really want, what are your values, what you're about, is starting to realize what is your, for lack of another term, formula for that value. What is your way of fulfilling that? How do you drive that value? If consistency or confidence or justice for other people, what does that look like for you specifically? Because that will get you more into that authenticity alignment space that Magdalena was talking about. And when you feel aligned and you feel like grounded in I know who I am and I know what I'm about. Do you see the difference, right? When you're that and you come out, nobody can stop you. It doesn't matter if they're like haters or whatever they are, you know who you are. And then here comes Amber in all her light and all her glory for the world to see, and whatever it is that is your life's purpose, mission, whatever you want to call it, what you're about. So that's where I would say, start with, okay, I don't know what I want. Great. What's the opposite of that? That's a lot closer to what I do want, right? That's where I want to go.
Do we have additional question, or do I, Celestine? Oh, we do? Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
we
Yeah.
do. I have a question. Now, self-advocacy, personal branding, they kind of sound the same. Can anyone give me or give us, what's the difference between the two? Self-advocacy and personal branding.
I'll give it a shot. Self-advocacy to me, the way I define it is just communicating your needs, speaking up for yourself. I think with personal branding, it's all about, what are you known for? What is unique about you? What differentiate you from others in the workplace? Are you the go-to person for X, Y, and Z? That sort of thing. So, and it's just good to, build and nurture that personal brand. Again, for me, it's all about the nonprofit space. We just had an amazing victory with the city of Riverside. They voted in favor of an initiative that we backed, and the room was full of nonprofits, and we were there at 10:30 in the chambers. Just, all about nonprofits and making sure they're resilient and here to thrive, to do the mission critical work that they're here to do. So if most people, describe me, they're going to bring nonprofit's going to be somewhere in that description. And advocacy, because in my previous job, working for AARP and advocating for older adults and their needs and issues, always fighting for, those who need a voice. So it's just what helps set you apart.
If I may add to this, I asked myself the same question when I'm preparing for this. And as I said earlier, psychology has become my best friend. So I've been just digging here. Self-advocacy means that you recognize your self-worth. You can speak up for yourself. You recognize your need. Personal branding means you shaping your public image so that you can showcase what your skills, those value, right, that you have discovered through self-advocacy. So one is like an internal discovering, and then the other one is my public image. Hope this helped a little bit. Go ahead.
I was just going to share that it's kind of how you show up. Your personal brand is how you show up. So, people will know kind of like your character. You're going to always show up professional. You're going to always show up, with something positive to say or something encouraging to say, or just kind of how you present yourself. I was talking to someone recently, actually my grandson, But I was telling him, it's like, if you tell the truth all the time, people will know that's your character, right? So they won't have to question. If someone says something else, like someone says like, oh, you didn't tell the truth, or they're questioning it, then it's like someone will say, no, that's not you, because I know this person's character. I know that this is who this person is. So that's kind of how I equate personal branding. They know how you're going to show up.
Hello, everyone. My name's David. I come to school here. I'm a sophomore, and this question's a little off topic, but because there's so many different careers that are in from the four ladies that are in front of me, is there any tips you can give to a student, me, female or male, of how to figure out a career that could be in a good pathway to be a student, to come to like have a good future, anything like that?
They're all like, pick our field. No. I'll take a stab to start with. Number one, there's that phrase that people say, find something that you love to do and you won't work a day in your life and you get paid to have fun. You like get paid to do the things. You'll have challenging days. So, that's realistic. So for me, it's like, so similar to what I said to Amber, right? What are activities or things that you enjoy to do? What are things that you like? So do you like, so we've all doing different kinds of service, right? So what kind of service do you like is one thing I would look at. The other thing is, be realistic. Some jobs are going to go away at some point, the way that society is going to develop. So find something that has a future. So find the opportunity to look for the things that you enjoy, that you don't have tension in your body about. Not every job is for every person, right? We recruit for coach operators, bus drivers for the public bus. That's not for everybody. It's customer service. You're driving in 2 circles and you get to go home, right? So, which is for some people fantastic. Many people say, I would never want my job because I work in HR, and what people's concept of what that means. My concept of what my job is not what most HR people say, right? I look at it differently because I have a different perspective. So you can be that unique brand or whatever you are, male, female, or otherwise, and just find that thing. Try little things now. If you can do internships or volunteer different places, it'll give you a clue what you're about. It'll give you a clue. What are the things you enjoyed growing up? If you had opportunities to volunteer places or provide services to people, or if there's products that you love, she created a service, but a product, right? So at the same, where's there a gap in society that you're like I would love to, put it out there. I would love to create an app and I call it HR It. So you can say whatever you want, just think of the most rudest thing you can imagine, cuss words and all, and you can put it into the app and it'll come out and say, excuse me, sir, next time I would appreciate you not behaving that way. Right? So, because that's $1 billion idea right there. So, but like, think about things like that. There's little things like she thought of something like, how is that not created? How could that not happen? You don't have to be perfect at it. You don't have to know everything. You have to be resourceful. And if you're any bit passionate about it, I'm passionate about people, obviously. So if you're passionate about it, you'll find a way and you'll be excited about it and you'll have those rough days. And like Magdalena said, well, you have that rock person that says, yeah, today's kind of rough, but think about what you did yesterday or think about last week and the successes you had. She shared they had a whole room full of nonprofits and had a great celebration. And like, how do you celebrate that, right? So remembering how to brag on yourself, because the ladies talked about that. What are the opportunities that you can celebrate yourself? Make your own highlight reel. Don't just have it online. So, yes.
And I'll just add, it's okay that you don't have it all figured out. Let me tell you, I was all over the place. I thought I was going to be a professional choreographer. I thought I was going to teach English. I thought I was going to do broadcast journalism, and then I landed on public relations. And so you do eventually land. You do eventually figure it out. But it's okay to kind of recycle a couple of different things that come up. You do eventually figure out what it is that you're called to do.
Right. And I will second that, or third, maybe fourth. So for my situation, I went to college to study broadcast journalism. I wanted to be on the news, reporting the news, asking, hey, how's it going? How do you feel? Well, then I get to the internship, and I have to ask them a question. Their son just died. Again, your values, going back to your values, to me, that was intrusive. That was disrespectful. And my mentor said, yeah, but that's what gets the ratings up. That's that sensationalism. That's the hot press. Oh, I had to apply to grad school. So I went to grad school, but the skills that I learned along the way, speaking, I've solidified my Spanish language, English and Spanish major. I was able to get a communication studies Master of Arts degree, and I taught as a graduate assistant. And that's when I fell in love with teaching. I said, I'm teaching what I love. Oh, maybe I should go into teaching. I went there. And then after that, I had an issue with the kids. And that's where Got Info came about. And so you are going to go through this journey, embrace the journey, pick up those nuggets. Communication is huge, critical thinking, always learning, and just staying alert for those nuggets that you're picking up along the way.
Hi, so I have a question kind of for people in my situation where I'm in the process of applying to a range of things, jobs, internships, grad school. So I'm employing both self-advocacy and personal branding. It's a bit specific, but if you could give any advice or maybe personal experience on how to navigate being ghosted, basically, since it's kind of a common occurrence, especially in the digital age, whether it be, in your opinion, what's the line between being too pushy and kind of scaring the person that, you know, you're trying to apply to versus showing that you're insistent and interested and determined on getting that position?
Well, I was just going to say, don't take it personally. You know, there are a lot of people looking for jobs, and, you know, with digital age, different processes going on. So for one, don't take it personally. Stay confident, stay encouraged. And then I'll let the HR.
Well, and we get ghosted too, by the way. So, you know, we're recruiting for a lot of jobs where we're getting an expansion. So we got to get another 100 coach operators in the next year with attrition, right? So, and then all the other services that people don't think about how much it takes to put the company together, right? And they're like, well, what other jobs do you have? Well, we're a business like anybody else. We have finance, we have HR, we have procurement, we have all those things. So we get ghosted too, and we try not to take it personal, but when the numbers go up, it's a little challenging. We do also have an increase. I've seen, so I've been in and out of HR management for like 25 plus years. I know I have a baby face. Realizing though that, one, it's not personal. Sometimes depending on the public versus private is different. I've worked for both. So what they can and can't do is different. So people will reach out and say, okay, well, why didn't I get the job after an interview? And they want feedback, and that has increased over time. And so the challenge is that, well, then you're looking at company liability in telling you, and then you trying to, not you specifically, but somebody trying to sue us. So there's different things. So companies have to be really careful with that. Some companies are more open to giving that feedback. So that's really helpful. It's hard if you can't get that feedback. So if you can find people to help practice with, which is kind of odd, you know, interviewing with people that know you, but we interview people all the time. When you meet somebody, we're asking questions, you're just interviewing, you just don't have a written set of questions that you're writing answers to. So realize that all those skills can be improved. And what I will say is, as long as you're tactful and respectful, then if they have a problem with it, as I said earlier, they're not your people. So when I had an intern a few years ago within our office, he was going to school here for IO psychology. It was before I actually went to get my master's degree. So he inspired me. Thank you, Jesus, if you're out there. So that whole idea of thinking about, where do you want to be? I know we all need a job. I ain't gonna lie, right? And finding a job is a job. So if you already have one, welcome to your second or third or fourth job. Because when I put myself through school, I had 3 jobs. So like, I get it. You got to work hard to make it happen. But you want to pick the job that is right for you, whether it's what you're going to learn, where you can grow. You do not want to go into any job. So I will tell you, to me, an interview is a two-way street. Everybody acts like, oh, I'm going in there, they're gonna judge me. Well, I'm gonna judge you too. If I'm interviewing with you, is this a good fit for me? So I'll give you some hints for interviewing. This will help everybody, sorry. The questions they're asking you, if they're disturbing to you, that's not the job for you. Because what they're asking you is like, can you fit into this? What are you gonna do in these situations, especially situationals? If that's not aligned with who you are and your values and where you're going, everything we talked about, it's not the job for you. You need to go in there with multiple questions. They may answer your questions before you get there, but do your homework. And I said, it's a job. Don't go in there blind saying, hey, do you love me? Right? Are you going to accept me? Am I good enough? Go in there saying, well, is this a good match? Are you good enough for me? Is this where I want to spend 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever the number of hours is? Is this what's for me? Is it what for me right now? Great. Is it for a season? Is it for a career? Is it a stepping stone? Is it why I'm in school? So, right, like I worked at UPS at 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. and then I worked for a nonprofit and then I came to school, right? And what I loved about Cal State, just as a plug, is that they had working professors. So my law professor was a sitting judge. Like the awesomeness of that, right? The awesomeness of the education you can get here is, I'm seriously going to say that. It was way better than my online school getting my master's. So just the sucking up that knowledge. You have resources, all of you do. You just have to tap into them. So I answered a lot more than what you asked, but I know that was more value than you ever expected to get. So, right? But like, think about what you could do with that. Think about like, this is knowing your value. This is self-advocacy. Walking into that room, not arrogant, just knowing who you are, what you're about. And I did not have it all figured out. I still don't have it all figured out at 47. But the whole idea is you keep moving towards that. So if you keep moving towards that and advocating, asking questions, if they say no, don't take it personal, right? Most people's behavior is about them, not about you. You're just triggering something in them. That's a great gift for them if they choose to take it as one. It's a great gift for you if you choose to take it as a gift. So the ghosting, they're not your people. Sorry, there's a short answer.
I'd like to add something to that. And you said it, but I just want to reinforce it. And that's going in, knowing your strengths. Know what you bring to them. And it just gives you that boost of confidence that you're bringing some incredible skill set that will benefit them, and having that mindset.
We have one more question. Yes, Lawrence?
Yes, this is for the HR. When they ask you the questions and you're in an interview, are those questions coded to develop a psychological profile?
So I can only speak for myself. I'll say no. Generally speaking, in the state of California, that is not that's not a best practice, is what I would say, depending on the position. Again, if you go into a psychology position, that's going to be different. Our questions are not. The most best practice and best legal way, in my opinion, is to have a nexus to the job. So that's why I really like situational questions and things like that. Most places don't do that because they don't have an IO psychologist or someone other than that to, and I don't mean just a master's, they have to have a doctorate to actually be able to do that. It takes a lot more time and effort, generally speaking. So generally those questions come out of necessity than they do out of actually trying to psychologically profile you. Let's be real, we all try to do that to one another anyway, right? So, I mean, I have a lot of tips I give people about interviews, and I'm more than happy to share those besides the ones I already have. Again, doing that is not a best practice because it's a little too subjective, if you will, in some ways, and making it directly nexus to the job is a challenge. Again, depending on the position, anyone that I have, they're not. They're just for us to find out in the best way possible. Think about this. We interview people for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and then we decide to marry them. I mean, like, so you've got to be really good at reading people and what's the need for the job. And then of course, usually there's a probationary period, but that's not a good business practice, right? If you're going in going, well, I could, so we don't do that where we work. But again, not everybody does everything the same way, but as I said, it's not a best practice. You're welcome. Thank you, sir.
Now I'm looking at my watch and I would like to know from Celestine if we have a lot of questions online.
Yes, we have 3 questions from our online audience.
Okay.
So the first one, how do you choose a mentor? So I greatly appreciate insights from any of the panelists.
Okay. How do you choose a mentor?
I'll start with that one. So when I entered the education career, the schools of education usually place you with a mentor. And then the school where you are hired on or you do your student teaching, they give you a buddy teacher. So that is like a default mentor. But then once you're there, you start looking for individuals who align with how you are, your personality, your likes, dislikes, you stay away. And so you learn that. And so that's how you can choose your next mentor. For me, going into the tech field, a brand new space for me is different. And for me, the way that I have chosen a mentor is I choose all the mentors. Anybody who can help me is my mentor. Michelle is my mentor. Dr. Beer is my mentor. Anybody is my mentor. And maybe that is the nugget here. Everybody should be your mentor now. Anybody who has something to share, meet up with them, have coffee, do Zoom meetings now. I had a mentor in Sacramento. I had a mentor in New York in these past 2 years. And you stay with them for as long as they're willing to stay. And then you outgrow that stage of whatever you're working on. And so that's how I would recommend that you pursue finding a mentor. So don't just say, oh, this is my mentor, and this is going to be the person that's with me until they die. No, you should have and can have lots of mentors. It's okay. And I'd also like to thank those individuals who have joined us from far away. I know I shared the event with a lot of people, and they are not necessarily here in this area. I know people are watching from Coachella Valley, Sacramento. So thank you, everyone who joined us tonight online too.
Another question.
Oh, I was going to add just something really quick to that, that I hold as dear, wonderful information for even myself. And that is, sit next to people at business events that you attend that you do not know. I'm telling you, that does wonders for your network. And no matter what stage of your career that you're in, you can still learn things. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always attending events. I'm always trying to get in front of folks to do the work that I do better, right? But yeah, just strike up a conversation with, normally I just rather just sit with my team, my people, and, but I'm missing out on rich conversations with folks who could, pour into me or connect me, with information that I need or whatever the case is. And that happened to me at an event at Riverside Convention Center a couple of months ago. I ended up being, an editor that, I needed to meet. And I didn't know he was a publisher, of his online newsroom. So it was a great contact for me. So just be open and be willing to just talk to folks that you ordinarily wouldn't want to.
Yes.
The second question, when advocating for yourself, how have you met with criticizing pullback? If so, how have you combated the situation? Anyone from the panel?
I have, so I've had to advocate for myself many times, going into public accounting at a later stage in life, not right out of college at 22, 23. I've had to speak on my behalf and prove to my employers that I was competent and capable and that I was productive. One situation I had where I was told by one of my employers that I wasn't productive. And so I wasn't productive, and so I couldn't work from home, because I was commuting to San Diego. And so I actually had to go back and pull timesheets and document all of that information and present it to them. And that's happened more than once where I've actually had to do that, because a lot of times if you don't speak up for yourself, people won't know. So I've become a big advocate of that. And also kind of as I'm talking to younger staff that are coming into the profession, it's like, take the time to document what it is that you do, you know, what projects you've worked on, how much time it's taken you, what was the feedback that you've gotten, so that in case you come across this situation, you already have the information available so you can present it instead of just waiting for someone to push back at you or with you, and then you have to go that way. So, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. One last question. This question goes to Sherry. And it says, I currently work for a nonprofit in San Bernardino, and I'd like support in increasing our marketing and branding. In what ways do you support nonprofits, and what is the best way to contact you?
Well, I do. I am full-time employed with the Inland Empire Community Foundation. And I do have a heart for helping nonprofits, share their story and implement, really effective communication strategy. And I have seen it work time and time again. When people know what you do and they, know that you're making impact, you're going to attract some amazing support. You're going to, boost your fundraising, your positive image in the community. And I'll tell you, my first boss, she had her own firm, and so that entrepreneurial spirit, was planted a long time ago, and I was so I just admired what she did over the years. But yeah, I can get my contact information to you. If you've ever received a grant from the Community Foundation, oftentimes we are able to get you featured in these special columns that we have in the Desert Sun and also in the Southern California News Group. And that's a family of papers here in the Southern California region. And every Sunday, there is a spotlight on a organization that receives a grant from us and their work and their mission. So you can get to know what they do. And we've had calls from donors who are like, oh, I really love, what I read about this organization. How can I, support it? Or they'll come to us, for information on how to do their charitable giving to do something similar so we can give out more grants. But yes, so it's a twofer. You get a grant and you get some awesome publicity. So, and these are because of media partnerships that we've been able to build and maintain over the years. So it's something that we're very fortunate to have. So we want people to know what these awesome nonprofits are doing. But yes, we'd love to hear from you. Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing I wanted to add. I'm really active on the Public Relations Society of America Inland Empire chapter. Every August, August 17th is National Nonprofit Day. And if you're on our distribution list, you'll receive an invitation from us to attend a free nonprofit panel. And we bring out local experts to talk to nonprofits. It's just for nonprofits, no one else, to get the very best of information on how to, build your brand as an organization, how to bring attention to the work that you do, how to, boost your fundraising through effective storytelling. So we make all of that free in terms of the knowledge and so forth and support. We usually give out toolkits and a ton of information. This is free. This is every August. So do tap in with me and I can get you on our distribution list for the next one we have.
You have one more question, Asif?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Sherry. So the last question is, how can we better meet our customers' needs? Anyone from the panel?
I've done the research on this. So the best way to meet your customers' needs if you have a business is through communication and getting to know that customer, getting to know what their needs are, their psychology, where they shop, what they do, where they spend their free time, and getting to know that one customer, just one, start with one. And then you build from that. So you're meeting their needs. And when you get to know that customer, then you connect with them, you talk to them, and that's the loyalty. And as if, I'm assuming this person is probably a small business owner, when you advocate for yourself through communication, saying, I have something that can help you, I can serve you with this product, this service, then you taking that step to let that consumer know is that connection, like, oh, you actually care about me. You care about what I need in my search for your service or item. And I would, for the small business owners that may be on Zoom or here tonight, it's your customer is number one, you know that, but that communication now has become even greater, that consumers want you to be everywhere on every single platform, on the phone, online, email, text. But the gut info is the best, so talk to me about it.
Well, you said, okay, very good. We have probably 2 or 3 minutes before the end. So if there is a very pressing question from the audience, we will take it. More question? No? Okay, that's very good. Oh, okay, all right. We'll take that as the last question for tonight.
No,
Please.
this is not a question. This is more of a comment. I did not want to leave without saying thank you for the panelists for taking your time for being here. I really appreciate everything. I've learned a lot. And Dr. Francesca Beer and the entire team that hosted this event. It's been amazing being here. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
How do you know something is, not value? There's a thing called cognitive dissonance. Out here, you have the rational brain, the cerebral, but you also have the emotional brain here. This is the emotional brain with a lot of that reacts, and that brain, might fight with the first one. If it fights, and you see that the cerebral part, you're just following it because somebody told you this is the way to behave. And it's fighting with this emotional brain. You understand that there is some difference in the values. Now, how you respond to that, that's how you do it depending on the situation that you're in. But there are 2 brains. Well, there are more than 2 brains. We've got the cerebellum also that does the muscles. But we have more than one brain, and that's how some things are embedded in one side and some things are embedded in the front. The front is not always honest.
Thank you. Well, we are going to end this event. And to end this event, I want to announce that thank you very much, Zach Tucker. Thank you so much for the work you have done for us. He deserves some applause. Let's do it. So, and I say that because this is the 7th ShEconomy. And at this stage, we are going to be able to offer 3 or 4 award scholarship to CSUSB students who are attending this event. So you will receive an email to attend. You need to attend the event, and I will send you a couple of questions that you will have to address. And then a group of us professors here will just look at your answer and then make the selection. So some scholarship, expect email from myself or Marina Kamel by, let's say, the first week of November. The second thing I want to do is, of course, thank our panel. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. The third one is to thank our dean. Thank you, Dean Gomez-Arias, for allowing to just, supporting this type of event. We will have an 8 and a 9 and a 10 and an 11 ShEconomy. So we definitely want to thank our dean. And then finally, I don't see her here, but Marina Kamel is someplace over there, probably running, has been an incredible support to the logistic of this event. So thank you very much, everybody. Hoping to see you again for the 8th ShEconomy.
And lastly, we want to thank you for joining us this evening and wish you a wonderful rest of your evening and a safe drive home. Thank you for coming.